Can everybody hear me? Am I audible, please? Okay, thanks, Martin. Thank you. Okay, that's very helpful. Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion this afternoon. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join us. I see we're kind of losing people who are, I think, rejoining as panelists. Okay, we're just waiting for Kane to join the panel. Is there a reason why Kane is not able to join us? He was here just a second ago. I'm sorry, John of Toto News. Could you please let me know if Wayne is perhaps stuck somewhere in the waiting room or what's happening? We'll just give him. In the meantime, welcome everybody who has joined us. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion on putting digital transformation at the heart of business strategy. It's always nice to see, it's always nice when people join these conversations, and I hope it will be a stimulating and interesting conversation, and I'm very much hoping on your participation to make this a good conversation for everyone so that we can all have take-homes this afternoon. So we're just waiting for Kane Wanjao to join us. If someone could perhaps give him a call and find out what's wrong. Okay, I'd like us to begin. Okay, shall we just start and hope that Kane joins us en route? Okay, let's just begin. Good afternoon again, once again, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to this afternoon's discussion on putting digital transformation at the heart of strategy. We have a very interesting panel who are with us today, very, very highly experienced in the areas of in their specific areas. I'm just going to introduce them briefly, and then we can begin. We have two of our panel of three. Hopefully, our third panelist will join us as we continue, and I'll introduce him when he does join us. So with us this afternoon is Brian Gita. Brian is the CEO of Think It, a startup that develops medical e-health solutions, mobile application software, and systems that close the gap between communities and their access to healthcare. Brian Gita is also the inventor of Matibabu, which is a medically non-invasive device that detects malaria in 2 minutes. And that invention won him the United Nations Empowerment Award. So Brian aims to use this and Matibabu and other science-based innovations to help people adapt to climate change, which has been found to be a major driver of malaria in Africa by recent peer-reviewed research from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, otherwise known as MIT. Brian teaches at the Young Disaster Resilience Leadership, a program that helps young people address conflict and disaster challenges in schools, communities, and at home. He has previously served as a software developer at the United Nations Population Fund, and he has worked in business management at Merck Group. Brian holds a bachelor's degree from Makerere University. He's a technologist at heart.
Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for being with us today, Brian. Martin Mirero is our other panelist. Martin is a Chief Technology Officer at agile, Africa's first integrated customer experience platform. agile designs technologies that help businesses measure and optimize their customer experience. As a CTO, Martin leads a talented engineering and delivery team in building pioneering customer experience solutions for businesses. Martin's experience is in digital transformation, product development, leadership, governance, customer experience digitization, and public sector e-service delivery. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks a lot, Janet. Really appreciate that. Yeah. For me, if I was wondering, is that really me?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to our panel this afternoon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. Kane Wanjawa is not here, but I will introduce him anyway, so that when he joins us, he can just join the conversation. Kane Wanjawa is the Chief Technology Officer, a second Chief CTO, at Twiga Foods, a Kenya-based B2B distributor of fresh produce and essential goods and consumables to retailers. Kane leads Twiga's technology function. He also oversees fintech design and branding at Twiga. Over the last 4 years, he has built the department to a team of more than 30 members that provide the business with software and services that have enabled Twiga Foods to transition from a tech-enabled business to a tech-driven business. So we're going to explore that distinction during the conversation. I hope Kane is able to join us for that. Before joining Twiga, Kane co-founded 2 companies. One was called Flashcast, which provided live-streamed adverts in public transport vehicles in Nairobi, and Faidika Technologies, where he provided bespoke IT, ERP, and mobile solutions to corporate and NGO clients. Kane worked in banking and credit capabilities. Kane is a graduate of Monash University in Australia. He holds a degree in computer sciences and a diploma of engineering. Prior to his undergraduate studies, Kane spent time in Japan, where he studied his background is in computer technologies and engineering. And he is very passionate about technology as an enabler. So again, we're going to discuss that distinction between enabling and and between being tech-enabled and tech-driven as we continue with the conversation. So welcome to all our panelists, the ones who are still joining us and the ones who are here. So I'm just going to get right into it, and I'm going to ask the most obvious question for people who are not specialists like myself. What does infusing digital transformation to a company's business strategy look like? If you've done it, perhaps you would be happy to share your experience with us. And I'm going to start with Martin.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Janet. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's a weighty question. I mean, always going to be, and it seems like one that, depending on your viewpoint, can take on, different flavors. I think from my perspective, I think the key piece in infusing digital transformation is really human. I mean, I think it's because ultimately, when you think of digital or technology, the question of impact must always be at the forefront. I mean, what's the outcome that we're looking at, and along that chain of getting to an outcome, there's always a human in the loop. And I think, and so therefore, getting getting traction around digital transformation or infusing digital within strategy is really about influencing the culture and of the organization, as well as the strategic priorities that come to be infused in the leadership, around digital and the benefits that you can draw from. So I think it starts with the human element and the recognition by the leadership of any organization of the perspective, then that can allow the leadership. We're talking about the senior leadership of an organization or any corporate vehicle, as well as the governance structures. The board of directors, investors, advisors, and so on. And then that I feel is the key then to calibrate the culture around it. And because once you get the culture right, then you can sustainably infuse digital, because it becomes a way of living, as it were, and working within that organization. Maybe I pin it there for now. Probably nuance this further. I think the human piece is really critical for this.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for your insights, Martin. Brian, what do you think?
Thank you very much. I think that's a key question. When you talk about infusion of technology or adoption of technology for any business concept, I think the drivers here are one about trying to understand what the value of the digital tools that you're trying to infuse in your business process, and understand the added advantage that this digital transformation will bring upon your kind of organization. So mapping out that benefit and mapping out the importance of going digital is key before you actually think about digital, because you most of the times find out that in most cases you have to understand what level of infusion you are targeting, because the users are very critical in adoption for any kind of a solution that you're trying to digitize. And if the users are not at that level of digitization that you're trying to target, so the adoption will be low. So there's a need of mapping out the empathy of the users for the solutions that you're trying to digitize, or the processes that you're trying to digitize, and then try to contextualize all this into something that is easily adopted at the community levels. That way, it gets easier for the organization to strategize on what it means to infuse any digital process and to take it step by step and set targets that are measurable, but are also smart, and see that it's phased. It's a phased approach of implementation, and not just all of a sudden try to change the core business and try to digitize it, but have specific indicators that can be monitored and make it a phased approach. But after mapping out what the landscape is and what the needs are to the technological kind of enabler platforms that you're going to deploy.
Empathy of the users. Could you just expand on that just a little bit?
So, I mean, as you're trying to infuse technology in any kind of service delivery or products that you're trying to do, it's key to understand by empathy, it's understanding what the user really thinks about, what the user really is going to feel, and where you think this will improve the time to value for your solution, or improve the benefits for whatever process that you're trying to digitize. So mapping out is really trying to assess that you're not just trying to digitize the process because it's a buzzword, it's catchy, you're trying to put digital tools, but it has to have a key performance indicator that is going to drive growth for this business, or going to drive use of the service or product to the user. So understanding and mapping out that empathy helps you understand the point at which you can introduce any digital tools or digital solutions across kind of the channel or pipeline of your benefits or solutions.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Kane?
Hi, Janet, and
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
thank you for inviting me to speak.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think using digital transformation is it's a process that needs to be thought through in terms of one, who are the stakeholders, whether internal or external, what do they gain to benefit, and can that benefit be clearly communicated? Because in most industries where, let's say, there is low to medium use of technology, or technology strategies coming after the business is an ongoing concern, there'll always be natural resistance. Change is never something that people take to, especially if they don't know what it means for them. The way it's always communicated is in terms of efficiency for the organization, yes, but resultant redundancies potentially, or change in role or what you do. Or if you're introducing it in an environment where people may not feel they are able or conversant enough with the technology being brought in, you're bound to get resistance naturally. So I think the first thing is always about thinking through who are the stakeholders, what does it mean for them, and how is this then effectively communicated. The other piece that's important is you also have to pace it. You want to embed technology in a way that does not cost further two ways of working. It's always good to have it in a measured way such that by the time it's fully implemented, in terms of how well that is implemented or effected, and this is more from our personal experiences, implemented, you always want to align it with processes, ways of working, and in such a way that it can complement the non-technology parts of the business. So in our case, we are heavy on supply chain, and this is everything from warehousing, engaging with vendors, engaging with farmers and suppliers. And you want technology to be done in such a way that it
Kane, I think we have lost you. I think we've lost Kane. Yeah, he's disappeared. Okay. All right. Okay, I hope he's able to.
If you don't mind, Janet.
Please go ahead, Brian.
I think it's very key to always figure out that process and also try to understand the stakeholders. But going back to the client and how you infuse that technology, I think yes, he was right that change is hard whenever there's new users of technology. But what we have to always keep in mind is how is this infusion, if it's already a running process or running business, how is this infusion going to shorten the time to value for the user or for the end client? If, for example, it's a hospital and you're trying to introduce a new system, how is the infusion of this system in a process that has been manual going to create a shorter time to value loop, but also ensuring that it doesn't disrupt the way people do work?
Yeah. There's something that Kane said about, communicating effectively the value of the technology that's being introduced, that's being infused. I don't know if you're able to speak from your personal experiences about that experience of communicating the value and linking it to you can share some tips for anyone who is listening and might need some.
Sure. I mean, communication is hard because and it's a benefit of clear communicating. In technology, you have to clearly articulate and communicate to the people that are going to take up the service, because it's good to handle expectations. Let me keep using the example of a hospital. Let me say process management system. If you do not clearly communicate the expectation or the problem that you're trying to address, then you're going to, as you're infusing any technological process, you're going to create an imbalance in what the end user is trying to expect and what you're actually achieving. So it's always good to communicate your current state, but also to capture the expectation of the different users that are trying to use this systems. For example, a health worker will always want to know what benefit, how is the system going to help them communicate, report to the patients or anyone that is coming into that hospital. So if you do not communicate the benefits to them, so they will look at it as a burden. And then that your expectation of infusing technology to see that the process is made easier is going to, unless it's going to become a burden to the user, but also a burden to you that is trying to build a business with technology. And also, I think during that process, as you're trying to communicate and you're trying to use technology as an enabler, it's key to also try to understand their level of understanding or the tools that they are comfortable with. In most cases, we want to build apps, want to build all fancy systems, but we do not listen to the people or the clients that are going to use these systems and end up building something that is going to be put up on a shelf and is not going to be consumable by these communities. So it's always key to understand that and know that communication is two-sided. As you're trying to communicate the importance of the solutions that you're trying to infuse technology with to deliver, it's also key to understand and hear back what the expectation and what they are trying to talk back to you, and then see if along that spectrum of technological platforms, what's easier for them to adopt, and then try to focus on that and then use that so that you improve their systems and processes.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for that. Martin, I want to specifically address your experience of leading the Huduma Center's digitization in Kenya. Perhaps you could speak from that experience and talk about what that was like in terms of in keeping in mind that there was initially a strategy for Huduma, and how did you merge the two, this digitization process and strategy?
Yeah, actually, John, that's a really that's a good point. Yeah, Kenya was quite it was quite the journey, especially seeing it's in the public sector that's traditionally not been associated with leveraging leveraging technology, first principles. So there were a number of factors, I think, that contributed to the success, or at least as we interpret it, the success of Huduma Kenya in terms of impact to citizens. And the first of this is, of course, the political will, being in a public sector setting. I think that really was needed to overcome the inertia, that the expected inertia when you have a long established regimental power structure, within government, and then trying to convince them that, hey, listen, we want to open this up, and sort of in a sense, and to a point that Brian made, and I think Ken has also touched on, is the expectations, being able to really figure out what the benefits and also the threats to stakeholders would be perceived, and being able to really manage that well. So for Huduma Kenya in particular, I think beyond the political will, the next space that really needed to happen quickly is time to value. I mean, we had to, in a sense, get to a point where the benefits of this model of a one-stop shop for citizen services, this integrated service delivery, would be of benefit to stakeholders. The primary stakeholder here being the citizen. So I think the first Huduma Center was built in 19 days and started offering services, in under 3 weeks, and that shifted the balance. When the value there was such a delta in value, and to the citizens, that then built up the momentum and it's strange to actually start working backwards now within the owners of these services, the government agencies, departments, ministries, to now start aligning with internally, because the benefit was clear. And it happened really quickly. So the citizens eventually became the custodians of this service, and sort of the protectors of it, and started demanding a bit more, more enhanced efficiency in the services. So I think this really helped in sort of reverse. It was almost like what's the word, like a reverse process, where the impact from this big bang way of delivering services digitally was very clear, and was made clear to the primary stakeholder, which was the citizen. And then now the agencies, who of course serve these citizens, then work backwards internally to digitize their own processes and start improving on the efficiencies. So that was, at a high level, I think, an experience at Huduma, the Huduma centers.
That's interesting, what you say about working backwards that way. That I wouldn't have thought that was the traditional way to approach digital transformation. Am I correct in saying that's not the?
That's interesting. Viewpoints, but yes, I think an inside-out approach is usually, I think, the most intuitive. But sometimes you can, and maybe I can give an analogy here, that actually an example from Nigeria, where how we sort of segmented our customers, and might even stitch together that empathy and communicating value to your stakeholders. So like because we're in the business of, effectively, what we'll try to do is to empower the relationship between businesses and their customers. Again, being customers close to or surfacing insights for businesses about how their customers interact with their products and services. So we notice, for instance, the normal process has been collect the data, derive insights from it, and then drive action. And action could be like take a certain intervention with a certain customer, or get send out a promotion, or whichever way you could define action. So action was always thought to be at the end of this train. We realized for small businesses, they were not so concerned about collecting data. They wanted you to figure that out for them, or even deriving insights. Small businesses don't want to look at charts and all manner of analytics. They just want action. So we, for those small micro businesses, we actually started with END, which is figuring out how we can drive action for them, and then as they grow up and mature, then they can now work back into owning some of the other processes themselves. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, but I'm very keen to hear other thoughts on that.
It does make sense. Do others have a view on that, Kane or Brian? Feel free to jump in. Is there, so let me just repeat the question, is there a traditional way really to do digital transformation? Is there or do you just kind of as Martin said, kind of do what feels intuitive and what feels right for the situation and for the company? Do you take an inside out approach or the other way around? Is that or is that neither here nor there? Kane, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Janet. Yeah, I think the ideal way will always evolve. There's no, I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong way, because every circumstance is unique to a group of people, an organization, or a team driving digital transformation. What I've seen, though, what it tends to be constant and uniform is, and this just builds on my last point, you want to do it in such a way that it meshes well with how a company does its thing. So let me give an example. If you're doing a business process mapping and you're engaging maybe with a finance team, and they're very keen on, for example, an audit-heavy process, that tends to kind of clash with what people think of as an ideal user experience, where it's minimum interaction, the system should do everything, and you want to be as hands-off as possible as a user. But a finance or a legal department may want confirmation that someone has actually understood and engaged with a system or some piece of content or acknowledged something. So if you go with a mindset that I want to make this platform as easy or as smooth to use as possible, then that does not align with how another department or other stakeholders within that initiative project may see it. So you find you have to then adapt and say, okay, let me build in the right fields that their needs are taken care of. It's never a perfect balance, to be honest. As organizations evolve and learn to trust systems more, you will find that people will then lean or bias towards having systems take over and do the heavy lifting. So that's just is when I think around minimize any disruption or any adverse impact. One area that we always underinvest in is engagement. And this is everything from documenting what the system should do, training users pre-launch, and then the support that happens post-launch. A lot of focus tends to go to the solution or the engineering or the system behind it. But then the real success or measure of success is once you've launched, are users comfortable, or is the change management? Did they get comfortable in terms of learning how to interact or use the system? So that's the other piece that I usually find very, very keen, ensuring that digital transformation is done or successful, or at least giving an initiative the best chance of success. Thanks.
Thank you, Kane. I don't know if Brian, you wanted to jump into this. If not, that's fine. We can move on into the next question that I'd like to address. What is that distinction between tech-enabled and I'm sorry, let me just find that really nice expression that I touched on earlier. What is the difference between a business being tech-enabled and tech-driven? Is there a distinction? I'm going to start with Brian. I think we might have lost Brian. Let's go to Martin.
Yeah, sure. So I think a tech-driven business takes, in a sense, digital, which is a key piece around technology, as first principle. I mean, so that's that's sort of the lingua franca within the organization. Every product, perhaps every market intervention, every idea is thought of as digital first. See, there's a way we could given that as digital from the onset. Enablement, and I'm just looking at the surface, my surface interpretation of this. The enablement is, or digital enabled business is one that relies to a certain extent on digital to execute on its mission. So I mean, this could be a native digital organization, say manufacturing, that has a recognition of the impact of value that digital can provide in helping drive outcomes for our business. I think I think on the surface, though we could unpack that more, that's what it means to me. I think as we advance along this journey, and I think as the business environment evolves as well with new business models. Many of them, really redefining and completely reworking the customer journey or the processes that those businesses use, and some of them being just entirely digital. I think we are going to see a shift, and I think the shift is already upon us to mostly, with a lot of businesses being digital first and being digital, being completely digital driven. And maybe I can pin it there. I can, perhaps as we progress, we'll come up with another insight. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Kane, actually, this was something that I had mentioned in relation to you, in relation to your experience of taking Twigger Foods from being a tech-enabled business to being a tech-driven business. Perhaps you could enlighten us on what that distinction is.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. We've actually lived that through that journey end to end, from being non-tech to tech-enabled to tech-driven, and now being tech-led. And it's really when I think of the 6 years we've been implementing our technology strategy. We've really been able to go through each of those quite intensely. So when we moved from non-tech to tech-enabled, at least for us at that time, it was really just about giving a visibility to other players in the organization. So you have all this information you need to collect. Running a supply chain, you have suppliers, you have vendors you're selling to and everything in between. And the tech-enabled phase was just about giving visibility and information to stakeholders, primarily within the organization. And it helped us like baseline everything. So who are our farmers, who are our suppliers, who are our vendors, where are they located, what have we bought, where is it, what are we selling, what's the price. So your basic ERP, CRM type of platform. And once we had that, we were then now to build upon transitioning to a tech-enabled organization to a tech-driven organization. And this now became the phase where you now layer analytics or intelligence on top of your foundational technology.
Yeah.
So this is everything from dashboards, for example, analytics, giving people automated reports, for example. And this just adds a level of efficiency and quickens decision-making within the organization because it's not raw data, it's processed data. So being track-driven enabled us now to use data to make decisions in real time or near real time. Sorry about that. Got a bit distracted. Then,
if you could just repeat that
the third stage, which is from tech-driven to tech-led. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So the idea there was to lay analytics on top of now all the foundational data we had. And this was everything from dashboards, automated reports, and doing this in such a way that everyone across the supply chain and the business can see that information in real time. Then a tech-driven to tech-led organization. What I mean by that is where now you're able to implement aspects of machine learning, artificial intelligence, using data to now actually drive decision making rather than users looking at data and driving the decision making. In a business like ours where it's heavy on supply chain, this can be applied across many different areas. So everything from logistics, routing, for example, of vehicles where they should go, all this thing from segmenting our customers, analyzing them, knowing who to visit, what to discuss with them, all generated through the data. For us, we've actually gone through the whole process of being non-tech, tech-enabled, tech-driven, tech-led. And then we're now thinking of how can we be tech-first, because tech will now help us decide where to go, where not to go. And that's now will be underlying the data we've collected to date. Thanks.
Well, that's a great illustration then of sort of building digital transformation allowing digital transformation to influence the business strategy. Thank you for that, Kane. That was really, really interesting. I don't see Brian in order to get his views on this question, but welcome back, Brian. He can join us on the next question, which is how does infusing digital transformation in the business strategy help in driving differentiation? How does that help distinguish a company from its competition? And I'm just to give Brian a little bit of time to think about it, since he's just rejoined us. Kane, if you'll allow me to go back to you again, please. Okay, have I lost everybody? Can I just repeat the question? So my question is, how does infusing digital transformation in the business strategy help to distinguish a company from its competition? And I was asking Kane to go first, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I think I missed that. Please confirm if I'm audible. Sorry, my connection has been on and off today.
It has, but you are audible. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Yeah, differentiation, I think, for us has been really our in our DNA. All the way from when it started, even in that initial tech-enabled phase. So just to give a few examples, when we started out engaging with farmers, a lot of them are working on relationships with brokers, things to do with going to the market, taking the produce there. And we came in with a different approach where we wanted to engage with them in a different way. And a key part of that was digitizing our interaction with them. So in addition to knowing who they are, where they're located, how they left to their bank account, and this took quite a bit of it took a bit of convincing, if I can call it that. When you're dealing with farmers who are very traditional in terms of their way of thinking, have been doing the same thing for 30 years, and it's not clear to them why they need to change. We had to do a lot of work just getting the farmers to change how they work. So the way we looked at it is, if we can convince them to work with us, and in addition to that, work with us in a digital first manner, we felt we could differentiate ourselves. That would help us scale, because unlike a scenario where you're engaging with brokers, for example, engaging with farmers through a digital platform enables the company to own the relationship with the farmers. So through that process, you're actually able to then engage with them in a way that even if you change the staff members working, or they need that information maybe to have a discussion with their bank around financing, that for us was a differentiation strategy. Same with vendors. For example, when we started engaging with them, a lot of them used to work in a way such that they'd have to go to markets at 3 or 4 in the morning, work with those brokers at the market, get produce back to their shop, and then start selling. But when you introduce them to a digital platform where they could order online, and through that they didn't have to wake up very early and go to the market, that for them was a big change. Took a lot of work, took a lot of convincing, but in the end, we were able to see the change in terms of how quickly we could scale, vendors trusting the system rather than the person-to-person relationship that they had always engaged in terms of how they do business trade. So for us, that was really key in enabling us get to where we are today. So tech differentiation as a key pillar of our strategy has something that's really borne fruit for us as an organization. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Kane. Let me have. I'd like Martin to weigh in on this, and then I want to hear sort of the NGO perspective from Brian. Martin?
Sure. Yeah, it's fascinating hearing the insights from Kane on the Trigger journey, and I am reminded of around this concept of differentiation. Think how the sort of mini history of products and services, and how consumers have accessed them, say, over the last 50, 60 years, especially sort of the industry we where we're trying and interesting bits of information about that relationship. And so I think of the pre-digital days, or when, say, before the advent of the internet, when customers had very limited visibility on pricing for things, because the cost of information was really high, without an easy way of accessing it. And you had to talk to a guy. You had to figure out, maybe from a relative who traveled to another country, what the price of that thing was, and so businesses really competed on the basis of that opacity. So they would arbitrarily set prices and make their margins off that. Then of course the internet then dawned upon us, and crush the cost of information and accessing information, make it much more democratic. So businesses were sort of forced to then compete on in a sense discoverable. So you needed to create more value around that product or service, by differentiating it. And I was just to do the loop around where we sort of are, and maybe my sort of it's sort of I won't call it skewed, but it's a view that's sort of biased to the space I'm in currently with in customer experience, is as products became cost of manufacturing became standardized, and I mean even the ability to access manufacturing resources became democratized. So differentiation became less and less of an edge in the product. And now we're sort of in a phase where we're seeing how customers and the experience customers have interacting with your products and services is becoming the differentiator. If I have a smartphone that is or a piece of technology as a product that's virtually the same from person to person and manufacturer to manufacturer, then the emotion as a customer that or what the experience I have interacting with that business, the journey I walk through from knowing about the product, getting it supported, having a voice to with that the company that's producing that product or service really becomes a differentiator now. And so in our space, I feel the advent of digital and digital being almost and digital tools almost being commoditized, and then the customer experience being so key to making the as the key differentiator to how you place your product or service to the market. I see that convergence as a great opportunity to further that differentiation, or to make differentiation accessible to producers. Organizations that need to grow their customer base and retain the customers that they have. Yes, that's my narrow take on it.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. That's always interesting to hear that CX experience. Brian, what does differentiation even mean to an NGO, and have you been able to achieve that, if at all that is even a goal?
Yeah, no, sure. Differentiation is, and I'm hearing Ken and Martin speak was just giving me memories of some of the use cases where I can share this. Let me step a little bit back from the health work and like you asked me to give an NGO perspective to differentiation. So sometime back when we were working with the UNFPA, and they wanted to find a way of reporting sexual violence in schools. And they had tried quite a couple of tools, and they were not getting a buy-in from quite a number of different tools, but they're not getting a buy-in from the school, but also buy-in from the pupils themselves or the students, because they were looking on how do we involve technology, but at a minimal rate at school, where some schools are not allowed to report or not allowed to have services, but they need to report sexual violence. So, and a lot of solutions were looked at, and then what one of the solutions that started peaking was a simple a way of infusing a secure line on phone booths at schools, and trying to infuse their child help center into these secure lines. and a person quickly calling in and trying to say, um, this is much an investigation from whatever other NGO that has the mandate to run that. And at the beginning, the adoption was a little bit slow because there was a lot of community and capacity building for the different stakeholders that were involved. These are the different civil society organizations trying to build their capacity on the importance of having such a dashboard with a system that is creating alerts to their nearest centers. And eventually, this started picking up and being adopted, and later on it was adopted as a technological tool that went into other clients. By clients, I mean devices, and then also was deployed on mobile apps as a very light application that, after reporting, could quickly disappear from the phone, since some people are being abused by the people that are closest to them. And we saw this solution eventually take on and later being adopted by ministry and scaled across targeted regions in targeted schools in the region of the country. But that story just brings out the benefit of infusing technology. The original processes of reporting sexual violence in schools were go to a disciplinary teacher, and that trust was not being built because in most cases they would think that the pupils are just lying, they're going against the teacher, the specific teacher, and things like that. So when we try to bring in an aspect of technology and understand what kind of platforms are being used by these pupils at these sections, at the points where high sexual violence is being reported, we saw that has a benefit and a big value that differentiated us from any other different way that reporting was being done. So technology with the right processes and the right team can really give you your core value proposition over any other person, and that can propel you to scale if you get it right and you engage all these different stakeholders so that they can also appreciate that benefit or that value at that level. So yeah, that's one of the use case that I can share in my experience with the civil society, the NGO department, communities.
Thank you, Brangita. That was very a very interesting perspective on differentiation in that, driven by digital transformation. That's really a very clear example of how that can take place. So I'd like us to take a bit of a break for now, 15 minutes. If we can, we're just going to take a quick break. I would not advise you to log out and go away. Please just mute and mute your cameras, and we will be back at 4:15 exactly. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah.
4:15. Welcome to the second half of our discussion on putting digital transformation at the heart of business strategy. Just before we went off to the break, we had a really good conversation on the value of communicating what the digital transformation is going to bring, communicating that clearly to users and to other stakeholders in the process in order to get their buy-in. We talked about managing expectations of what the digital transformation was going to bring. We talked about a phased approach and mapping out the landscape of the business as well as the business needs. We talked about the importance of listening to feedback from eventual users of the digital tools that are going to be introduced. And we talked about also taking into consideration the tech savviness of the people who are going to be using the new technologies in order to drive the business strategy. We had a good discussion about what is the difference between being tech-enabled and tech-driven in terms of a business. And right before we left, we talked about tech driving differentiation. I'd like to take a slightly different angle on the discussion and talk about money. In terms of infusing digital transformation into a business strategy, important factor, of course, you have to pay for the digital transformation. But is it the case that the more money you spend, the better the chances of your success in terms of the success of the digital transformation process? And I'm going to leave that open to the panelists. Who would like to go first on that question? If you'd prefer me to pick for the sake of order, I can. Martin, would you like to go first?
Sure. Shall give it a shot. The question of money. Yeah, it's a hot button issue. I think taking off the point you made around does more money get you more results? I think I'd be cautious about that, and perhaps my take on it would be the money spent in the right way, or investment in the right places will, very carefully selected areas for investment will get you the optimal results. And sometimes it's a trial and error. So I think it's a case of acquiring more money to get more results. I think in that regard, possibly one of the and I found, I think in my experience and sort of like the role that I play within technology, as sort of being a tech leader in some sense. One of the one of the areas we struggled with is articulating the business value of technology investments, sometimes to those that make the decisions on investment. The C-level, the board investors, and it's sometimes because you get caught up in the excitement around the use of technology. And sometimes miss the path to value and be able to actually communicate that, collect data, interpret it and be able to communicate the data around ROI, and what, the investments in every tech/digital area are the value that's been derived from each of these, whether in terms of increased revenues, a bigger customer base, business outcomes. And so, one of the things we try to do a lot, organization, is for everybody within the technology organization to always start with the end in mind and try and figure out, okay, what's the path to impact for this? If we want to pick up a piece of, a new piece of technology, invest or enhance something, can we articulate the value of that in terms that the business will understand, that they can then inform, the CFO can understand, for example, that can inform an investment decision. So I know that's it's looking at it from another perspective. But I believe any discussion around investing in digital transformation will really be driven by being able to understand the return on investment for that, and figuring out a way you can communicate that. Yeah.
So in your view, it's about demonstrating return on investment. It's not really about vast budgets.
Yeah, I would think yes. Highly targeted investment, and sometimes yes, granted there'll need to be some tolerance for experimentation. So you have to, experiment. There's going to be some, mistakes made along the way, and there needs to be a culture that supports an intentional investment around that, around experimenting with things and figuring out, okay, we could provide some insights on where to or not to make additional investments.
Super. Thanks, Martin. Thanks for your views on that. Brian.
Thanks, Janet. That's a good question. I'm trying to process what I have in mind. Of course, I think to me, I would take it from the perspective of the challenges that may occur during the digital transformation of any company. Because I think Martin has brought about key aspects, but if I'm to build upon what the conflicts that may be brought up by the digital transformation policy or any digital transformation in any company, I'll look at it in a few dimensions. And the first is the budget, because digital transformations for an ongoing business or any other new business is capital intensive. There's an investment that needs to be done. So for an ongoing business that wants to adopt any digital transformation platform for delivering value to its customers, if they do not have the right budget, then there's going to be cohesion between the different departments, because finance will be wanting to maximize profit and cut down on expenditure, as other people that are trying to do R&D and trying to deploy new solutions want to maximize on any investment line. So if there's no budget allocated, that will cause some bit of cohesion. And that goes back to the main challenge, I think, for me is company culture versus vision. So during this whole trying to infuse digital processes within any company for its core business, the vision has to be clear, and that the value that this digital transformation is bringing on board has to be clearly communicated down to everyone as well. But you have to see how that fits into the current company structure. So, and appreciate that it's a process, and this transformation is not going to happen just in one go. So it is a process. So then a lot of energy has to be put in defining that strategy to evoke, to harmonize company culture and the vision that involves any digital solutions coming on board. And this also, takes on a phased approach kind of model to see that you clearly study your current company culture and see how am I going to introduce these digital solutions and not break the driver or what people are really, what the reason as why people come to this place to work, the reason as why people wake up. So you have to find the harmony between the company culture and vision. Else, there will be a lot of cohesion between the different departments that are trying to evoke these different digital solutions. But I think also short-term programming, I would call it, is another challenge, because when you're trying to go digital, you will have to appreciate that the uptake may not be as fast as you expected.
Yes.
Across the different departments. So if you do not put in time to really articulate and draw up that vision, sit with the team and see what is the roadmap on this digital channel or digital platform that we're going to take. What is it going to look like? And also, before you do any digital transformations, to make sure that most of the decisions then are driven by data. And that helps you really make an informed decision on what direction to take, because then you're going to build a strong strategy and strategy is not a one-time thing that doesn't change, but strategy has to adapt to the learnings. So then you'll be able to build an adaptive strategic movement of the infusion of any digital kind of transformation to the company. And for our case, for example, as we're doing a malaria diagnostics, we found out that, every time we used to go back to these health facilities, I find out that the data that these kids were collecting was missing, and no one could account for that. And then and it was an estimate of how many diagnostics are being done a day. So we had to really infuse another channel of a digital platform, which was automating the processes at point of care, building this kind of network that helps the health practitioners only focus on service delivery and leave the other kind of reporting to the different stakeholders, reporting to the different ministries of health, automated. Not fully automated, but at least halfway automated, so that we could see change in the community. So that's one of the examples I can give.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for those insights. Kane, can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Yeah, when it comes to the age-old question of cost and how to pay for IT transformation. What I would say is at a macro level, we are seeing more and more acceptance of IT being critical to growth. Before it was seen as a cost center and a cost that had to be really, really justified before a company would really commit to it. But I think those days are past us. Now, in addition to what Brian and Martin have shared, we tend to look at it somewhat differently, because for us, our technology spend is an ongoing cost. This is because we build all our technology internally. So we've hired all the software engineers, the team that drives the technology strategy. So for us, it's more our payroll cost item rather than capex or project spend item. So it's always something we have to plan for ahead of time. However, the same principles still apply. What is your technology spend as a percentage of revenue? How are you able to show and demonstrate value to the business? And where can you, or where should you invest at any one point in time? Martin mentioned about the need to experiment and give latitude to make mistakes and grow. And that applies to us as well. So even when you think around allocating time, because that's really what we have, that's really the most precious resource. So how do you allocate the team's time? What do they focus on? How do they balance between building new systems, maintaining existing systems, doing a lot of out there R&D that could potentially be useful for the business. That's what we try balance, because we look at where we are and where we want to go. Being tech-led means you have to be purposeful around committing to investing in technology, resources, and anything that will enable us to achieve our objectives in a more efficient or more timely manner. So I think what I would say on that is, when I think of technology spending, one is understand why you're spending, understand what you're trying to achieve. But also it's important to understand what could go wrong and try mitigate around that. Because if you bet the farm, so to speak, on one project or one initiative, and there's a delay of some sort or changes are done midstream, then normally has an outsized impact on the company's ability to meet its objectives. So what's your BCP, especially when technology initiatives delay? Have you budgeted for overruns, for example? Or have you budgeted for change requests from clients if you're in the consulting space, for example? So those are things that always have to be top of mind. But then tied also to the first thing we talked about during this session, communication also is key when it comes to technology and spending. A key stakeholder is a project sponsor, or at least the financial sponsor of the initiative. So whether it's the CFO, whether it's the CEO, whether it's the board, able to clearly communicate what you're spending on, how much you need, what you're trying to achieve. Can you clearly communicate how effectively you've used the funds? What's the ROI? And what are the measures and metrics of success? So it's one thing to say I've spent X and here's the output. But it's another thing to say I've spent X, this is the output, and these are the benefits to the business. Because that's what will give the stakeholders confidence to continue investing in technology. So spending and communication actually is a key thing. It's just say we all have household budgets or personal spending that we have. Communicating is key to also planning how you spend. The same applies in business. So from a technology standpoint, spending strategy has to be communicated very clearly. But within that, and once you have the approval, it's also how you allocate between new initiatives, maintaining existing systems, and then R&D or innovation as well. Thanks.
That was a very, very practical list of things to take into consideration around money and driving digital transformation. I really enjoyed listening to that. What you said about spending and communication going hand in hand is also quite key. Yeah. So I would like to invite questions from. Sorry, Kane. Thank you so much for that. Sorry, my mind is going in different directions. I would like to invite questions from the guests who've joined us today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we can. And as we wait for any questions that there might be, I wanted to ask a question around perhaps maybe if you could leave us with kind of your parting shots around what you would recommend to sort of any companies or representative of companies that might be here listening. What is to you, what is key from speaking from your experience and in your different areas of work, the one key, if you had to give them one key piece of advice in terms of driving digital transformation and strategy, what would that be? I don't see any hands, so I'm just going to pick at random. I'm just going to start with Martin. Is there one key piece of advice from your years of experience that you would say, do this so that you don't fail, your digital transformation doesn't fail, and so that it reflects helps you push your goals forwards, helps you push.
Oh, magic bullets, huh? Jeez. I'm still along that journey of, distilling it down to one thing. But I think, and maybe I'll just, step back on this a bit and just ask, or propose that a good starting point is to really be so, as an organization, to be so fanatically clear about your mission, what you're trying to, or your vision, your vision, the ultimate thing that, that gets you up in the morning and you're trying to solve and for whom you want to solve it for. And then, with that clear vision, it really becomes a motivator for figuring out the path to get to that. And the mission, as it were. And with that, armed with that, that very clear view, then interrogate and really it's sort of a learning experience. Interrogate and find the best information available around digital tools you can use to walk that path, or any interventions around technology that can help you along that path. And this could range from, a big part of it is investing in the right people, investing in a great team that will help you uncover this, and also have a learning culture, to be intentionally seeking innovations that or possibilities for innovation that you may have to build. So I think with that vision, mission, and understanding of technology, then you can begin to build a foundation around being really deriving the optimal value from digital transformation. I find that and maybe just as a final thought on this, the people piece is so key. And this sort of also translates into culture, because it's the behaviors that are rewarded, behaviors that are encouraged and tolerated around people. That's what really creates a culture. And I think once you have a culture of rewarding innovation, good and creative thinking, continuously learning, celebrating small wins, and achievements that you make along that journey, and investing in people and their upskilling. In my view, that has been a really big piece of getting to sort of now becoming more resilient and making it more sustainable to as you walk the journey on digital transformation. Yes, allow me to leave it there.
Okay, those are really good pointers. So be clear, fanatically clear about your vision. And with that vision in mind, then get the best possible information about the tech that will help you get there. And create a culture that rewards, that supports this the digital transformation. Invest in people, invest in upskilling, and reward creativity, right? Reward experimentation. That's what I understood from that. Thank you so much, Martin. Asante. I have one more question for you, which I'll leave till the end, Martin. Brian, would you like to come in on sort of that one key thing that you would advise organizations to take into consideration if they want to make their digital transformation successful and push their goals forward?
So Thank you, Janet. I think I want to lean towards what Martin was saying, and that's learning. As long as you create a bilateral platform for learning across the organization, and that means being shorter feedback loops between you and the customers for the solutions you're trying to deliver, but also that's you being able to listen more and not always being selling mode, and listen to what the other different stakeholders you're working with are trying to say to you. Of course, not everything that they say is that you should do, but at least listening is and trying and being open to feedback and learning is something that I think you should be armed with as you're trying to go down this path.
Super. Thank you. Thank you for those insights, Brian. Who have I? Kane, do you have any insights on this? One piece of advice?
Yeah. So I think the one overarching theme would be, at least from my experience, would be culture. And this is communicating and ensuring that the organization fully buys in to digital transformation, understands what's in it for them. The biggest resistance from what I see is people and adoption and adaptation. So you may have the best built software, you may have run the project as well as you could have, but if people don't buy in, you'll get a natural and material resistance. However, if they buy in, what you find is the process of transformation becomes much, much, much better. One thing I see quite a lot, and this is broadly speaking, just having also spoken, or if it's not obvious what the benefit is, you have to work 2, 3, 4 times much harder, or do the same thing again and again and again to achieve the same result. So yeah, I think the way I would look at it is culture, and this is all the way from the CEO or the leader of the organization. He or she has to be very deliberate around communicating why technology, what do we need to do, what's in it for you, how does it help the business, and just have everyone hold hands and commit to digital transformation. So yeah, I would say, I mean, there are many other things, but the one thing is attitude and culture would be one of the key things that would enable digital transformation to be successful.
Yeah, you've all spoken very compellingly about. Thank you, Ken. You've all spoken very compellingly about communication and the how central that is to making digital transformation strategy work, and pairing that with the vision for the company. What I have not heard so clearly is can tech, let me formulate this question in layman's way. Is it possible for tech to actually create a pivot for a company? Can a company pivot because it entered a digital transformation process? Is that something you've seen? Yes, Kane, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. I think I'd actually look at it the other way, where if you could even if you're a tech business, you may find that also not continuing to evolve within the technology sphere, they bring about a risk. One example that's always cited is Kodak. So Kodak was the leader in cameras and digital film products, but then they never saw the rise of the smartphone. And nowadays, unless you're a professional, not to buy a camera just for for leisure. They'd rather buy a phone and take photos with it. So that's one. That's one clear example of not keeping up with the times. So that look at it is, it's not so much do I have to invest in it and what are the benefits. It's more, what risks am I bringing upon myself if I don't invest in technology? You'll definitely be left behind. Even when you look at the most established industries in Kenya, when you think of banking, for example, everyone talks about digital transformation, digital banking, branchless banking. Everything just said around the digital strategy. So yeah, I think it's more about what happened to me if I don't have a digital transformation strategy. And I think for most companies, at least, they are starting to give a lot of thought and attention to it. Thanks.
I think so, and I think COVID has very much accelerated that. Anyone who wasn't thinking about it before or was giving it half a thought is now fully focused on it, I think. I have a specific question for Martin. Could you talk about your experience of, or rather, could you just, what are your views? Can corporates learn from startups, in your view and from your experience? Given that you've transitioned from one to the other, perhaps if you don't mind explaining that experience. Question.
Sure, Jenna. Thank you for that. Can you hear me? So make sure my connection.
Yes, very clearly.
Yeah, it's still holding up. Yeah, great. Wow, that's an interesting one because I sort of was started went into probably one of the more extreme forms of corporate, which is government, and then back to stuff. And I think there's one of there's one working theme around the difference that then lead to the learning bit is just the flow, the free flow of information within startups. I mean, there's such a flat structure usually. I mean, or even if it's not literally flat, I mean, there's information democracy, and good ideas can come from anywhere, and sometimes within a very regimented corporate, it does sometimes stifle that, or make it harder for ideas and eventually for innovation to sprout and to thrive. And so I think from a learning perspective, I think that's a key piece. Just the way information moves around. It sounds really simple, but it's something that can make the difference between recognizing an opportunity and being able to actually seize it. If information did not flow as really for startups, and I think coupled to that is also the empowerment that I find. I mean, you can beyond just communicating an idea, there's also some level of empowerment to try it out, to experiment, to figure out its feasibility. And so yeah, I think that's what I've felt personally. And yes, and well, there's also the aspect about the blurring between your work and life, in a sense. I think in a startup, you're always switched on. You're always thinking about your problem or how you could do it better. I mean, you never really put off a switch. You carry it with you, and sometimes within a corporate setting or government, there's a clear delineation between when you're sometimes executing on your day job and when that's over. and you tend to sort of cleanly separate the two, in a sense. Yeah. So yeah, perhaps I finish there, but that's from personal experience.
I definitely concur about the blur between work and life in the two different setups. In a startup, you're right; you're constantly on. I agree with that. Whereas with the corporate in a corporate environment, it's much easier to just leave it and go home. I don't see any more questions in the chat, and so I would like to thank you to be here with us this afternoon to share your insights, to share your experiences. I personally have learned quite a lot from everything that you shared with us this afternoon. And again, I'd like to just the Color team joins us in really thanking you for everything you've been able to share with us this afternoon. And thank you to everyone who's been able to join us for this discussion and for your contributions to the discussion. So Brian, Martin, and Kane, asanteni sana, and thank you.
Thank you very much, and wonderful panel. Thanks for hosting us here.
You're very welcome. So we look forward to our next inquisitive event. Will take place in December, I want to say, but there will be communication about that to our membership and to and on social media. So be sure to everybody and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Great weekend, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you all.